We are all excited to learn more about Fiji, or as the schedule says today, Fuji. Did you notice? We're just going to go ahead and turn the time over. This is Maurice's
daughter Pam,
and son-in-law. Okay, I'll let you guys just take it over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are grateful to be here today. We are sad that we had to leave Fiji to get here, but we're very, very grateful to be here. We're going to tell you a little bit, just at the beginning, just a teeny little bit about our mission, how we wound up going to Fiji. We've got 8 different videos, so it's not going to be us talking the whole time. Most of this is going to be about the island. That's why we're doing the whole visual aid thing. We will explain this in a couple of minutes when you see a slide that's got this going on. Also, there's some stuff up here that you can look at afterwards to get a little bit of a sense of what's going on. I'm Rick. This is my wife, Pam. We're coming up on our 47th anniversary in a few months. So this is a nice opportunity for us to share with you one of the coolest things that we've ever done together. This slide right here is talking about what our assignment was, and it's something that almost nobody has heard of. In fact, when we were in the MTC for a week, we'll show you a photo of like 120 senior couples were there when we were there, and there was a young man that was running a meeting, an evening meeting for all of the senior couples. And he said, I want you to introduce yourselves, tell us your name, where you're going, and what your assignment is. He said, I think there are about 84 different assignments that senior couples can serve. And we were kind of in the back of the room. And when it got time for my wife to introduce us, she said, we're the Klomps. We're going to Fiji, not Fuji. And we are going to be human rights missionaries. And the young man said, I stand corrected. There must be 85 different assignments. He'd never heard of our assignment before. Our specific focus was to meet with ministers of education on different islands around the Pacific and talk to those ministers of education about a curriculum that was designed for primary school students and secondary school students. We have both of those as visual aids in the room today, primary and secondary school students. And it was very simply a curriculum that focused on 10 lessons promoting basic human rights. In other words, discrimination is never okay. Bullying is never okay. Families are important. So that was what our assignment was. And we were able to go to Tonga twice. We went to the Cook Islands. We went to an island I'd never heard of called Kitabusu. It's spelled Kiribati, but it's pronounced Kitabusu. We also went to
Samoa and Cook Islands.
Samoa and the Cook Islands. And we took little side trips to Australia and New Zealand. But this is about Fiji. And we've got some beautiful pictures that we'll be sharing with you. My wife's going to talk just a little bit now about what the curriculum was that we were promoting, and then we'll jump into the photos.
So that word there, Kalega, means colleague or friend. So the lessons were called Kalega lessons. And the logo represents children reading their books. And Kalega focuses on children and youth worldwide, teaching them about their rights as stated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So the church realized there were a lot of programs out for human rights for children, but they were very boring. They were just kind of lecture lessons. And so these lessons have singing and dancing and activities and storytelling. And the lesson plans are just amazing. And so that is what we would speak with government officials and show them about the program and see if they would be interested in piloting it in their public schools. Teaching human rights positively influences children's self-esteem, attitudes, values, and behaviors. So how do you know how to stand up for yourself if you don't know that you have rights? These were some very basic ones. Family, a beautiful thing. Everyone has a right to family and a right to choose who they will marry. So no forced marriages or arranged marriages. You have a right to go to school. You have a right to receive an education and not be pulled out into the sugar plantations or the diamond mines in Africa as a 7-year-old and work 16-hour days and you're pulled from school. Those things are not right. And universally, they're working on these things.
Yeah,
You are
so-
born free and equal in dignity. And do you want to talk about the bullying one?
Well, yes, it's important to not be a bully, but if you see bullying happen, it's also wonderful if you can say something, if you can support the individual who's being treated badly. So in our secondary manual, it goes into a little bit more detail because it's also not a good idea for you to get injured badly yourself. So we balance things out, but the focus is on human rights and responsibilities that go with that to support the dignity of all human beings. And that's probably about all we're going to say on the content, right? Because they're here to hear about Fiji.
Okay, sure. Yes, please. The Hulsingers, he was president of the BYU Kennedy Center, and they had lived all over the world with U.S. aid and so forth, and then he headed up the international school at BYU, and they're the ones that started the program.
And my wife actually met them about 8 years ago when she was doing her internship in international policy management to get her master's degree in international policy management. So she met the people that developed this program.
So it's very interesting because I know so many of you have done missions and how the Lord really arranges things for you to be serving where you should be. And so I was in Geneva, Switzerland at the Human Rights Convention, and I met the Hulsingers there, and I was able to see this program rolled out at what they call a side event, where they make presentations at the United Nations. So when we got ready to serve our mission, I called Ellen and I said, "How's your program going?" And she said, "Great, the Adams run it. I'll give you their information." The Adams called us the next day. We talked for 3 hours, and within a week we had our call. So it was meant to be.
Anything.
My brother. So they're talking about family. This was the lesson on family. So let's pause right there. And can I have Matthew and Dallin come up? This was given us as a gift when we left Fiji. So if you can just be real careful with that and go up a little closer and hold it up high. And so this is Families Are Forever. And the paper that it is on is pounded mulberry tree bark. And they pound it with a wooden mallet on this until they have layers and layers of white sheets. And then they put the traditional Fijian geometric pattern, they paint it on, which is usually black and tan. So this is the Fijian symbols, geometric symbols here, and it's painted onto this very fine pounded layer upon layer of mulberry bark. So thank you. You can just fold it up and put it back on the corner there.
So this paper is the equivalent of Egyptian papyrus. It's like homemade paper, is what that is. These are some of the other couples that were going out at about the same time that we were leaving. We're over here on the side, not that it matters. Lots of people, myself included, were not real clear on where Fiji is in relationship to other islands that we're more familiar with. So you can see Australia in the green here. New Zealand is down here. Some people have heard of the Republic of the Marshall Islands. Here's Papua New Guinea. Here is the Cook Islands, where I said that we went. Here is Tonga. Here is Samoa. This is Fiji. So it's actually fairly centrally located. It is not close to Hawaii, quite far away from Hawaii. And that's a map also on their homemade paper.
It's called Masi, and so Fiji. This is just Fiji here. That's the Pacific Islands, but Fiji has 333 islands, and only 110 are inhabited. And Fiji just gifted one of their islands to Kitabusu. because the ocean is rising so fast, they had to relocate a whole community off their island because it's under the ocean now.
And this is going to be hard for you to understand living here in Utah, surrounded by the mountains, the Wasatch and the Uintas and everything. The high point on the island of Kitabusu is 9 feet tall, 9 feet above sea level. I've got a picture of me standing there. So a couple of big waves and most of their island is gone. These are the two main islands, Viti Levu and Vanam.
And here's Suva right here where we had our apartment, and we were based in Suva even though we were regional and traveled to many of the other islands.
What?
How many islands are there?
333 islands, 110 are inhabited.
But about 80% of the population lives on the main island, so it's pretty sparse when you get out from the main islands. I'm guessing none of you ever had a backyard view like the shot there on the left. It is so green, the palm tree, the heavy vegetation there. This was the view out of our front window, so that is the ocean. That's the Pacific there in the distance below those yellow clouds. Now, if I'd swung the camera around a little bit further over this way, you'd have seen a homemade bus depot. There was a family that owned 8 buses, and so straight out our window, there was like a bus depot. This is a little bit more picturesque.
I always really liked the bus depot. I was fascinated with their comings and goings. They would do rides, and they would also do church members, temple trips from the far north part of the island, 3 hours away. They would bus them down to Suva, the Fiji temple. So we could just walk up the street to the Suva Fiji temple. Dallin.
How did you travel from island to island?
You can go both ways. We flew, but to go to the different islands within Fiji, you can take the boats, but some fly. It's just more expensive.
And to some of the outer islands, it's a two-day boat ride.
Yes.
So that's pretty cumbersome. It's amazing that the islands, even the teeny little islands, have airstrips, but it's small planes that go in there.
Very, very small planes. But it was interesting when we were working with the curriculum people. They were trying to get their curriculum digitized, and our lesson plans are digitized. And he said in the rural islands of Fiji, the teacher has to go out on a boat where she can receive internet, download her lesson plans, and then go back to the island. So there are very rural, remote parts of Fiji, but we were not really there. We were on the main island. But those are the stories that we heard.
So we were actually headquartered, as mentioned, at the church college, which is the high school there. And this is the photo that I was referencing earlier, where it talks about these things that we're wearing that my wife will talk to you about.
Okay. These are called Saloos, and they're made with the very, very fine mossy bark. And each one of the roses are handmade. And in Fiji, they are very, very respectful as a society and pay honor. So anytime you speak, we were invited to be the devotional speakers at Church College. This was the end of March, right before we left. And the head girls, the school leadership, they come behind you. You're sitting on the front of the stand, and they come behind you and ask if they can place the salu around you. So whenever you speak, you're given a salu. And it's a great honor. So we brought ours home, and when we give our talk, and we'll wear them when we give our talk at church. But I think, let's see, maybe Rachel and Lily, do you want to? This one was a very special one, and I'll have the girls come around and show you. So hold it out just real carefully like that, and you can just walk up and down the aisles, and I'll tell about it. Okay? Yeah, just walk in front of them. Thank you. These are our granddaughters. This is our family over here. 2 of our daughters, Christine and Heidi, and everyone that goes with them. So we're very happy to have them. This is Rachel and Lily, but if you'll notice when they come around with this salu, this was a very, very expensive salu. And we were given this when we were the guest speakers, get this, we were the guest speakers for the kindergarten graduation, kindy graduation. And it was so fun. But it is a big deal. All the little kindies had graduation robes on and caps, and they sang and they danced, and we were the guest speaker. We were very honored. So you'll notice in this wreath there are little bottles of coconut oil woven into the salu. So when Rick and I went back to our office at Church College, the graduation was at primary school for the kindies, we walked into our office, and Leedy, one of the administrators, came in and she saw our Saloos, and she goes, "Oh my, those are so beautiful. Those are very, very expensive." You know, it's like great honor and respect when you have the little coconut oil bottles in there.
And fresh flowers.
And it had fresh flowers, yes. I had it redone because the fresh flowers died, obviously. And so anyway, Leedy said, may I have one of the Saloos, because she has Eva, who's graduating in November. That their school year goes January to November, and they have December and January off. And Rick wasn't going to bring his home. He already had one, and so I didn't want to give mine up, but he gave hers to Leedy. Well, her daughter Eva was chosen to be head girl of the whole school. They choose a head girl and head boy. The church really brings up the leadership of the schools, you know. Look for the little bottles of coconut oil on there. You see them? And she came to us one morning and she said, "Pam and Rick, no one knows yet, but Eva was chosen to be head girl. This girl is amazing." And she said, "She's going to wear your salu tomorrow." So Eva has the other salu that goes with it.
The campus where our office was very easy to get used to. It's absolutely beautiful. Everything is so green. They receive a tremendous amount of moisture. You can see the ocean out there, obviously.
Yeah.
And these salus are a little bit different. If you look, these are all natural. So they're made out of leaves and flowers. So some are meant to be heirlooms. Some of them are good for a day. A little bit like Hawaiian leis, only you can see that they're pretty fancy. And we enjoyed the support that we had there. While most of the classrooms are very modern, they still have a couple of the old bures. The bures are what Fijians have lived in for millennia. They use the natural materials that are there to build their houses. And one of our friends, Melissa, taught in that yellow-based one with the palm frond roof. And some of you may be very familiar with it, but palm trees, the leaves, they're very, very waterproof. They have a waxy texture to them, so they make excellent. These are all dried, but when they're new, they make great shingles. They work very, very well. This is the principal of the primary school there. She was very supportive. So those kids who were singing early on, they were kindergarten students who served under the tutelage of Marisi, the principal there. The gentleman on the right is the assistant principal. He's one of the 3 stake presidents in that area. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to add?
Well, Marisi is just such a fun person. And when we were sitting on the stand at one of the at graduation in November, it was just a couple of weeks after we first arrived in November of 23, and all of these students were coming up from Church College, graduating, and Marisi leaned over to me. "I taught that one. I had that one. I had that one." She knew every student that was graduating. She's just amazing. But Marisi is so fun and so funny. And her answer to everything, her statement is always, "Jesus is the answer."
And Pam, didn't she give you this?
Oh, yes. She gave that as a gift. Her mother made that. And that's
anybody
very...
like to see what that feels like, or not really?
That's very Fijian. They hand weave the baskets and I don't know if that's some palm leaves. I'm not sure on that, but that was a very special gift from Marisi.
That is the actual speed. We did not speed that up. Those youngsters are moving that fast. And you're going to see some dancers.
This was one of the best dances we saw. They do these at the resorts, but it's very island specific.
Now, the good news
dances and the
is
moves. They all tell a story with the moves they do.
the good news is we're not going to ask anybody on this side of the room or this side of the room to do any of those dance steps. Okay? We believe in interactive discussions, but not on that dance. I grew up in Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada. I grew up in high mountain desert with average annual rainfall of about 8 inches a year. And even though I've lived in Georgia, which gets over 70 inches of rain a year for 30 years before going to Fiji, I still have never in my life seen anything that green. Everything is green. Everything is growing. We really love the orange-red African tulip trees. They're considered a nuisance tree because they grow so rapidly, but the blossoms are just gorgeous.
And this was a rainforest only 15 minutes from our apartment. So that tulip tree you saw and the rainforest, we just had to drive right through it every Sunday to go to church. Poor us, right? It is so amazingly beautiful. And there's always some tree or some flower or something blooming. But the African tulips, they were astounding last year.
Is that
A lily pad.
And they grow almost like dandelions. In some of the ditch banks, there are lilies growing wild.
Lily, do you want to stand up? Lily does not want to stand up, but this is our granddaughter, Lily. And when we said, oh, we've got to take that picture and send it to Lily, I think we sent it to you, didn't we? Or, yeah, we did.
Let you go ahead.
Okay,
Briefly.
this is the rainforest. It down there on the bottom, I don't know if you can read, it's Kolo I Suva, but you pronounce a C as a TH and an I as an E. So really it's Thola I Suva rainforest. And this is the same rainforest that we would drive through to go to church, but this particular hike has a series of waterfalls and you can swim in the pools. So it's just beautiful.
Did you go swimming?
That's me down there. Rick chose to photograph. He did not want to get cold. It was cold, but it was beautiful.
Water was cold.
Yes.
Yes, it was. But the Pacific, the ocean water was warm. Not like if you go to San Francisco or Los Angeles. No, it was very pleasant for 10 months of the year. It was very comfortable to swim in. The rules for senior couples are different than the rules for young missionaries. We were able to go to the beach and swim together. It was a little bit different. This is something that was incredibly interesting to me. When I was in about 4th or 5th grade, I read a book called Call It Courage, and it was about a young man in the Pacific Islands who had to go to a distant island to prove himself and to become a man. And he ate breadfruit, and I couldn't ever picture what breadfruit would look like. How do you have this thing grown on a tree, and you throw it in the fire, and when it cooks, you open it up, and it's like bread inside. These are breadfruit. We were hiking through this Kolo Suva park, and we saw some smoke down by the stream. We went down there, and it had rained the night before, which was not unusual, this young man was having a hard time getting the fire going enough to cook the breadfruit. Being an Eagle Scout and former Scoutmaster, I helped him as best I could to get the fire going. And his friend, they offered for us to stay and eat some breadfruit with them because the Fijians are very giving, very generous people. But the fire was going slow, the cooking was going slow, and we had places we had to be, so we didn't eat any breadfruit. But we thought it was amazing that they were actually...
A little bit, yeah.
We wish we'd had some spaghetti
They're
squash
very
over
heavy
there.
and bumpy. We did have a chance at another outing or something to taste breadfruit, and it really is, when it's cooked fully, it is like pulling pieces off of a roll.
Is the breadfruit poisonous if not cooked right?
No, it just wouldn't taste good. I mean, you
I
wouldn't...
think it would make you sick if it weren't cooked enough. But
Good, yeah.
I don't think you would die. Go ahead.
Okay, the tree on the left, this was when we first got there in November of 23. This might be, I guess, January of 24, but the red tree, they're called fire trees or Christmas trees. They did not have a good year in 2024, but in 2023 when we arrived, it was lit up everywhere. The red blossoms just covered the tops of these canopies of Christmas trees and red everywhere. It was just gorgeous, and they lasted for 2 months. It was really beautiful. And then that's us working hard on our mission at the Shangri-La Resort.
For our 45th anniversary, I took my wife to Shangri-La. That's the name of this resort. So you are able to celebrate some holidays. I have pink and all different kinds of colors and orange. It's just a very, very beautiful place. This is just outside downtown Suva, which is the largest deep harbor on that side of the island. And there's a sidewalk along there, and that used to be one of our favorite forms of exercise, was walking along the seawall.
And that's just part of the seawall that we would walk, and the trees were just so interesting in that one. You can see how many roots and trunks, and we were fascinated by that tree.
I didn't bring any video because it would have maybe been unpleasant to some people, but on the other side of the road is the palace that the leader of Suva has lived in traditionally, and there are bats in those trees. The bats are not really scary. They're the size of a small cat. And you can hear them during the day when you go over there, and they only eat fruit, so they're zero danger to people. But it's just really weird to say, about 150 feet from this photo, there are trees that had large bats. And this photo gives you a good shot just of general landscape. We included this because we grew up in the north of Atlanta, and Maurice lived in a town called Swanee. And they have a Sawani in Fiji, which we thought was pretty funny.
And that's the little police stations. You'll see those as you travel. There's one main road that goes all the way around the island, and as you're traveling on that, every so often they have these little police stations.
So Maurice lived way down upon the Swanee River. There was a river here, but it was not the Swanee River.
This is some of the teachers at Church College, and they asked me to give a little presentation on myths of perfectionism. And so we had a fun little gospel discussion, and it was just a fun little women's group, and we just grew to love those teachers. And Marioni's the one standing up on the left back row, and she's the school counselor. She is just amazing. But the faith and the kindness, the warmth, the love that the people share, it's just really amazing, and the respect that they show each other. And then this is Levy right here.
John Shepherd.
She was one of the administrators, and that was her daughter, Eva, that became the head girl. Yes, this was just a women's group devotion. Oh yes, there are a lot of men teachers at the college.
And this video right here is just to give you a sense of how isolated parts of the island can be. It also shows you the reef. Virtually all of the main island of Fiji is covered by a reef. Look how calm this water is in here. It's almost like a lake. So the reef provides huge protection. Nobody's worried about swimming. There aren't sharks on the inside of the reef anywhere that we were aware of. Didn't hear of any shark attacks, and the people spend a lot of time in the water. But for those of us who grew up in the West and in the high mountain desert, this is kind of hard to picture. Literally as far as the eye can see, nothing but Pacific Ocean, and you're going to see this brown stuff turn green when the light. There we go. Just beautiful, beautiful countryside. Very, very peaceful. Very, very quiet. If I weren't talking, you'd just hear the waves.
This is Whala Ward, where we attended for a year. And this was our last Sunday there. We had pictures taken with some of the families, but the church buildings, if you can see, have some of the bigger buildings have air conditioning, but most do not. But Whala sat right on top of a hill, so you see the slatted windows, and you just open those, and there would be just this wonderful breeze come through, and the palm trees. So you would sit in sacrament meeting and have this island breeze, and the palm trees, look out on the palm trees, and it was really just heaven.
Unless there wasn't a breeze, and then it got hot and people were sweaty. The entire bishopric was in just, nobody wore a coat, nobody wore a jacket, and most of them wore short sleeve shirts. And I went for a year and a half without wearing socks. And that was not rebellious, that was just because it was too hot to wear socks most of the time. It was unpleasant. Oops, sorry.
And this is the bishop's family. The bishop is standing right next to Rick, and the men wear Sulus. So these are Saloos, the reeds, but the men wear Sulus. So a lot of the missionaries and senior missionary men, bought Sulus and would wear those. Quite often in the Whala Ward, sometimes the deacons would pass without their sandals on. So it's very common that a lot of Fijians are barefoot, even on the asphalt road and whatever.
In fact, one of the more touching things that I saw at the end of the sacrament meeting, two of the deacons one wore flip-flops and the other one went past the sacrament barefoot, and another one had sandals on. After the sacrament was over and the meeting was over, one of the priests came around from the table and he was barefoot. He had loaned his shoes to one of the deacons to pass the sacrament. His sandals. It was kind of cool.
And,
I was just going to say, what we're going to show you next is it's some video from a craft fair, and look at how the women are dressed. The bright, bright colors. You'll see lots of bright colors, and you'll see more of this fabric, the paper. They use it for decorations, and some of the patterns are even included in clothing.
let me say just a little bit more about this. But yes, that dress there is the one here that I'm wearing. I've not been brave enough to wear this here in America, but they have dress shops all over the place, and so when we first got there, I found this beautiful fabric. They use bright colors and geometric, so I had this dress made, and then a little bit later, we had this one made, but it was kind of fun because we found out as we would talk to the dressmakers of this dress and got to know them in the store, they're the Chinese lady who would cut the fabric and so forth. Her two children, they were not members of the church, but her two children attended church college. So we would see, do you remember his name? We'll get it in a minute, but anyway, we would see them at devotionals. And so I found lots of dresses and things. It was $5, whatever they did to your dress, any alterations. So I had some dresses shortened because they don't all wear all long dresses all the time. And I found any excuse I could to go to the dress shop so we could see them often. So I would, Bowen was his name, yeah, he was year 7. And so it was just this really fun relationship, and we would talk about the church. So we took the book of, one day, Marie, who would always take our order, she said, oh, Bowen said he needs a Book of Mormon for his seminary class. He's at church college now. And we said, well, we'll be happy to do that. So the next week we went back and we gave a Book of Mormon for Bowen, and we brought one for everybody in the dress shop. So that was just kind of a fun, ongoing thing throughout our mission. Oh, and I wanted to tell you really quick. Sorry, Bishop's wife is in the middle there, and she's so sweet. And in Fiji, they give you a hug and you do kisses on the cheek. And it's just so warm and loving. And their names are really hard to get. Like they repeat it. Like the vice principal of primary school was Pano Ratabuki Buki. So you say Buki Buki twice, Ratabuki Buki, and they say it super fast. I could never get Bishop's last name, and found out his mom was in the ward too, and I was meeting her and everything, and she said, just call me Bishop's mama. So she was always Bishop's mama every Sunday. I had kisses for her, and she for me, and then Sister Bishop, I called her, she worked in the Suva, Fiji temple on Thursdays, so I would get to see her on Thursdays in addition to Sunday. This is International Women's Day. So that featured a lot of women entrepreneurs, and most of the jewelry that we'll show you later, a lot of it came from that day. We went to that celebration 2 different times in one day.
Holidays were a little bit different there. We did not see a single Christmas tree that you would recognize, no fir or birch or any kind of pine like that. This was a festival in the middle of town, the first Christmas that we were there. So they make their trees out of synthetic materials and color them up and light them up so you can see the Christmas ornaments that people were having a little snack in. You'll see another tree here, that was downtown, with the water right there. Obviously, never ever snows there. When it gets into the low 70s, you'll see the teenagers wearing hoodies. They're freezing.
And that tree is made, the green is made of golf turf.
And their nativity set is made out of very, very dark wood, because that's what resonates with them. That's what's meaningful to them. So you've got Joseph and Mary, you've got the baby Jesus, and you've got the 3 wise men who have pretty good suntans.
So this is a boat ride up the Nagua River, and it goes through all kinds of canyons and waterfalls. It's just incredible. We did this 2 times.
And many of you will be very familiar with canyon trips. Have you ever seen canyon walls that look like that? You can't see any stone there. Just the foliage, just the vegetation, pretty much.
Usually the water is really clear, but it had rained, heavy rains the day before, so it's kind of muddy. But when you get to the top of this, we don't have video of this. We didn't want to be disrespectful, but you get off the boat and there's a rural village, and you get to meet them and see all of their houses and everything. And they told us the story that the school, the kids have to cross the river and walk for, 2 hours to get to the school. So the local villages that support the school, the parents take turns, and they'll stay for a week monitoring the kids, at school and helping out, and then the kids come home for the weekend. But they have to cross that river a couple of times to get to school.
So we had some guests that came to Fiji while we were there. Elder Cook came to speak to the missionaries. He also spoke to the temple missionaries, and we were fortunate to be able to hear his remarks.
And there you can see his Salo, very, very honor and respectful one. It's got the fresh flowers in it,
Very
and the
ornate.
mossy papyrus.
Elder Suarez came shortly before we left in one of the other towns. We drove up to where he was, but it wasn't proper to take pictures during that meeting. Some of us have been to a fish fry, but I'll bet it wasn't just throwing the whole fish down on a grill on the beach, on some, no charcoal, just old pieces of wood that they'd scrounged up. We didn't know it initially, but this was actually a ward's activity.
They started talking to us, and then they went, "You're Sister Klomp." And we go, "Is this Wayla Ward?" This was very before we started going to Wayla Ward. So this was actually ward activity. And this is our favorite beach. And that water was so amazing. And we would put our chairs under the palm trees, and they would have the kids climb the palm trees there and take down the coconuts. You always have to be careful where you park your car or where you walk. You don't want a coconut on your head. And so on the public beach places, they would send the kids up the tree and get the coconuts down so that wouldn't be a problem.
And the clothing for the beach is very, very different than American beaches. Most of the men and women were wearing t-shirts and basketball shorts. The only bikinis or other kind of swimwear like that you would see were on the guests who were there, on the tourists. So it was a very, very safe, family-oriented kind of an environment. This is Pacific Harbour, one of the places that was about a 50-minute drive from downtown Suva and from our flat, which was a 2-minute walk from the Suva Fiji temple. I love this photo because when I first look at it, it looks like fireworks. It's not, it's palm trees that are lit up. This is what it looks like in the daylight. But to me, that's just magical. And there are lots of resorts, there are lots of places where the best of the land meets the ocean.
This is at Church College, and it's a celebration of Fiji's independence from Britain, 54 years.
Sorry, I thought I could pause it. It didn't want to pause. There was a young man coming up on the right-hand side, and he had a double boar's tooth. He was one of Pam's piano students. His name is Charlie.
So if you can picture him in piano class, and then up there, they put coconut oil on their skin, and I mean, and they're really expressing their culture through these dances. They're telling a story. I always wish that they would tell what the story was.
It would be hard for you to see just looking at it for 20 seconds, but only one of the young men had an actual war club carved out of a very heavy dark wood. The other boys had leaves, so they were dancing with the leaves. So it was not a ferocious, scary kind of a thing, but it was in memory of their ancestors who were warlike people. We're going to shift gears just a little bit from Fiji because the next several photos we thought were very representative of the Pacific Islands in general. We told you that we worked on 5 different islands in the Pacific and then visited an additional 2. These bores are on the island of Kitabusu. This is the island that the high point is 9 feet above sea level. So you can see that these homes are built up on stilts. We believe that these homes were still being lived in because of the fabric that's there. We're going to show you a couple of other photos that I think are just spectacular that I don't believe anybody's living in, but they're still there demonstrating how people live in harmony with the land. So if you can imagine every day going to and from your garden to do your gardening with your place out on the water, and obviously that's concrete in front. That wasn't there a long time ago. This is my favorite home. You have some pretty good water views from there, and the walls are mats. They're woven mats. So if you read Elder Groberg talking about the other side of heaven and his mission, you can see, get a feel for what things were like in Tonga. By the way, when we went to Samoa, we went to a little village that was kind of like the Samoan equivalent of Nauvoo. It's called Saniatu, and we went to the elementary school there, and we're talking with the principal, and the principal said, "You know how they say that Tonga is the other side of heaven?" And we said, "Yeah, we'd heard that expression, that Tonga is the other side of heaven." And they said, "That's because Samoa is heaven." The next 5 photos show you the island equivalent of farm to table. Farm to table is a big thing, right from a garden to the store to your house. Watch this gray pail there. It's full of fish. So the people just caught these fish. They just brought the boat ashore. So follow the gray tub. You guys carrying it? That's what's in it.
Look at the colors, too. Fishing is their #1 industry.
And this is still Kitabusu. So the ladies picked up the tub that they just set down. She's putting it on that table that has a little scale. And it didn't matter what kind of fish it was. They charged 5 Kitabusu dollars, which is not even $2 per pound for the fish. So super, super cheap for brand new fresh fish. You ever seen blue ones like that? Orange tail, there's kind of a turquoisey green up there. And then Pam shot this video that might not be working.
This is Tonga. The video just shows you what you saw in the pictures of fishing. The Tonga has a lot of lava. Volcanoes go off in the Pacific all the time, underwater volcanoes. So that's the lava, and these are called, they're very famous, these are the blowholes. And so when the waves hit that lava, all the air underneath it kind of goes under the lava and shoots up, and you have all these blowholes. This is from a promotional video about going to our, this was shot in the Philippines.
So we spent a year and a half in Fiji and other islands of the Pacific trying to help children understand that they matter, that they're important, that they have rights and responsibilities, that they should be treated with respect and with dignity. That's what our focus was. And we just happened to be in paradise for that entire time.
So I think that's our presentation, and any questions?
Now, who paid for this vacation?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to call Dad and we'd say, well, we're at this resort this weekend, or not. He goes, every time I call, you're at a resort. I said, are you working? He said, what church do you go to? Anyway, So one time he called and we were so excited to tell him that there had been a huge major water break in downtown Suva. And we were without water for 2 weeks. And so we get up in the middle of the night, we had tons of water supply, and we pour it in the toilets, and we had tons of drinking water, but then it would come back on for a second or two, and you fill those bottles up again, and then it was off. It took them 2 weeks to fix it. So when they called, we said, yeah, we've been out of water for 2 weeks. And he goes, now you're on a mission. Yes, Eunice.
We had missionaries in our home for years, and we had the first Tongan missionary that came to the States.
Nice.
And her father was the king. It was very interesting. She was an excellent, she could outplay any boy in basketball.
Yeah.
And when it rained, they would go out and wash their hair in the gutter, the water that came off from the rain gutter.
Yes.
Tongans are very, very proud of the fact that they're the only island in the Pacific that had not been colonized, that they maintained their independence. Most of the others, Britain or the Netherlands
still
or
have a
France or
king.
whatever.
So is the king's daughter. What an opportunity to live in your home. The king owns all the land and they just lease it from them, but he's not big on tourism. So they had a few resorts in Tonga, and the tsunami of 2022 took them all out. And we went to one that they were trying to rebuild, but Tonga is beautiful, but it is very, very primitive because they don't do the tourism. There's not a stop sign on the island. It's not a stoplight, 1 or 2 stop signs. But the church really is the community for Tonga. 54% of Tongans are LDS. And so it is like Utah in that there is a church building on almost every corner. And they have basketball courts. And so there's not a lot to do on the island. So the church itself, the building, is a real congregation area for the community. And Janet had a question.
What is the average temperature there? You kept mentioning how hot it was.
What do you think? Low 80s? Low 80s to mid 80s. It got up, I think, to 96 one day. That was painful. That was brutal. It got down to maybe 65.
A couple of days in July,
And
their
you'd have thought
winter.
people were going to die.
Yes. I mean, they came with scarves wrapped around their neck to church school
Puffer
and
coats.
coats on.
Puffer coats. at
Puffer coats.
65.
Do they have air conditioning?
Yes,
You
Church
guys-
College has air conditioning,
But,
yes.
but the majority of Fijians that have manual labor kind of jobs and the ones who are doing this kind of handicraft, they do not. They have windows. They also, we were trying to have stuff mailed to us. Most of the Fijians' homes don't have a mailing address. Mail delivery, you have to go to the post office. So when we were trying to take something to a family, we said, "What's your address?" And they kind of laughed and they said, "Do you know where Cakes 2000 is? Just keep going down that street and we're the house kind of
The
set
pink
below
house.
the road with the pink roof." That was how you got to. It was almost like going past the barn and the hound dog on the left. You turn there. It was kind of like that.
Any other questions?
What's that thing that looks like a ball?
I don't know. This was filmed in the Philippines. This is part of the Go HRA promotional video. So a lot of it was filmed in Fiji, but this was the Philippines, and I'm not sure what that is.
And one reason why the Philippines has produced more videos is that this program started there about 7 years ago and was piloted with about 65,000 students in the public school system. Earlier this year, they signed an agreement with the Geneva Office of Human Rights Education to roll it out for all 28 million students in the public school system in the Philippines. The Philippines has even more islands than Fiji does, and a lot greater population. In fact, the entire population of Fiji is under 1 million people. We're from Atlanta. Atlanta is about 5 or 6.
Not close. Philippines are more Southeast Asia.
We could go back to that map and it would almost be on the other side of the world.
Yeah, so.
Our son in London said that we were exactly on the opposite side of the world from him. There was no way to get to us without traveling for about 22 hours.
Yeah. He
And
said
Fiji-
literally, if you drilled a hole from our house in London, it would come out on Fiji. So that's how far away we were.
And
from him.
Fiji is 19 hours ahead of the U.S. So it's Tuesday there.
We're finished with our presentation, so what we'd like to do, I know Janet has a really fun coconut treat for you, because coconuts are everywhere. You can go to the grocery store and buy a coconut and for a couple dollars, and they'll peel it, cut it apart, and they'll drain the juice and they'll shred it all after you buy it. You just give it to them and they'll do that, and then they'll hand you this bag of fresh shredded coconut. So coconut is everywhere. But what we'd like to do, maybe I can have the girls come up and they can, while we're getting the treats ready, there's a couple of things we can do. We have some jewelry here and some beaded shells and little purses and things that are all indicative of Fiji, and you'll see even the paper earrings are the masi, and then I have the traditional Fijian painted on these wooden, painted on coconut is what my earrings are. So, and we also have Pure Fiji. It's a product that is just very famous there, and it's all natural oils and sprays. And so Jenny and Rachel will come around, is that who we said, for that? And one is a little body lotion and one is a spray. So if you would like it sprayed on your hand, they'll do it. They'll just spray it. They don't have to touch you. If you don't want it, they can spray it on their hand and you can smell it if you want. So we'll have the granddaughters kind of circulating. They can show you up close the shell earrings and everything's made with shells. Wyla Ward gave us a going away dinner after sacrament meeting, and they were just very near and dear to our hearts. And so this was what they put around my neck, this made with beautiful shells, and they gave us beautiful fabric to have clothes made. And I just said, I will wear this all the time and keep Wyla Ward close to my heart. So we'll send the granddaughters around, and Janet will come around too with treats. So thank you so much for coming.